Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodmer, and on this week's episode, are expensive sliders worth the price tag?
Plus, your questions about SD card speeds, how to record 2 mono tracks at once, and whether to shoot your documentary in 4K or 1080.
Hello, Griffin.
Hello, Nick.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I feel like I just shocked you. I was too excited.
Yeah. It's like we both thought we'd be the second person to say hello.
We did. But that's okay. That is okay.
So I went on a shopping spree today.
Good. Good. I like when you go on shopping sprees.
I'm going on a trip to Japan in a couple days, and I need some gear to take with me. And one of the things I need is a slider, like a better slider than I already
Motorized
have.
or unmotorized?
Unmotorized. I just need a smooth. I just need smooth.
Just got to get smooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, let me start by talking about the slider that I currently have and why it wasn't going to be good enough. I think you've actually seen this. In fact, this is the Synetics Axis 360 slider.
Yep.
And this is that slider that I tried to take to Utah to the.
I was gonna say, I think I've seen part of this slider. I don't think I've seen the whole slider.
Yeah, this is a motorized slider, and when we went to that park, what was the park called?
Zion National Park.
Yeah, you and I went to Zion National Park. My whole intent was to bring this motorized slider in and do some really cool motorized time lapses, and I completely forgot to bring the slider part. I just brought the motor.
Just the motor.
Yeah, still got
and
some
you
cool
thought about
panning.
trying to rig up something that the motor could just pull, but no, didn't work out.
Yeah, because I had the motor and I had the chain. I could have still dragged a camera across the dirt or something.
But that wouldn't give you the smooth. You're looking for the
Right.
smooth, right?
Yeah. So
Like smooth
the problem
jazz.
with this slider is that it's really great because it's motorized. The motor can go really slowly, and it seems to get these beautiful shots on the slider that way. But one, it's way too loud to use for an interview. And two, when I try to use it manually, there's a bracket that goes in the middle, and it seems like the carriage kind of bumps over the bracket every time it gets there.
That's not good.
Yeah, and I mean, I could kind of tweak all the tightness settings. I could get it close to not, it wasn't really bumping too much, but then it's too tight, and I just can't get a perfectly smooth movement. It's mostly smooth, and then I get 2/3 of the way through, and it speeds up a little bit or something. That was always the challenge for me.
So you need perfect smoothness.
Yeah, and this thing was relatively expensive. The Synetics Axis 360, I think it was $500 when I bought it, and I also like that it comes apart. It would have been great to travel with, but I just wasn't going to be happy with the results.
So what'd you buy on your shopping spree? Did you buy more than one thing? Knowing you bought a couple things.
I did, yeah. I bought a couple things. That wasn't the intent at first, but
Sure.
I wanted to try out some things. So first, I just, from my home office, went online, went on to B&H's website, and I scanned through a bunch of sliders, and ultimately, I didn't really want to land on this brand because I knew this brand was expensive, but it's what I did. Do you know what brand I'm talking about?
Expensive slider, Kessler.
Yeah, Kessler, yeah. That's what I did. I ended up buying the Kessler Stealth,
Ooh.
which I guess is not their heaviest, most expensive cinema line, but it's kind of, I guess, good, but a little bit lighter for travel. This is, let's see, this is almost 3 feet. They market it as a 39.5-inch slider, but that's actually the full length of the hardware. I think it actually only has a travel of about 31 inches. But that's pretty good for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Problem is, how expensive is this thing?
31 inches.
It's $819. I think that's pretty
have you?
ridiculous.
I lost you for a second, but I'm back. Don't worry. Apologize.
So maybe you didn't hear me say how expensive this thing is.
I didn't. It was $500.
$819.
That's a lot of money. And
Yeah.
this is not a motorized slider?
It's not motorized. It does have. I mean, I suppose it could be motorized. You could motorize it because it has the gear system and a little rubber, rope thing. I don't know what you call that. Like a rubber chain. But the reason I like it
track.
is that because it has that track, you can turn this dial and do it kind of a perfectly smooth slide. I think every time I've tested it out, it's great. It's like
Okay, so there's a knob you turn that makes it move down the track, but doesn't that mean then your like knob turning has to be really smooth and perfect?
Yeah, but it's easier to like turn a dial. It's actually, it has like a handle on it, so it's also using physics to my advantage. Yeah.
So
but yeah,
I'm thinking if you got just like a little knob, you like does one full rotation of the thing go the entire length of the track?
No. That would be a problem. It looks like it probably takes me. Well, let's see. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 7.5 rotations.
But there's some sort of handle you're putting on it or something. Is that right? That lets you not have to stop and move your fingers to twist some more. I'm just thinking if you're just doing your fingers on a knob, you can only twist so far before you have to stop and move your.
Yeah, if you're looking
again.
at the picture of this thing, it doesn't have the handle that I'm talking about.
So you've got some sort of a crank.
But the crank is a separate product, which again, this stuff is ridiculously expensive because the crank is $50.
Yeah, as well it should be. That's what you get.
Yeah. I feel like sliders are the epitome of what we hate about camera equipment. Like all this filming equipment, they can charge way too much for it because it's for filmmaking, and sliders just seem like they're ridiculously overpriced.
I had a slider I used for weddings, but I just bought like $100 cheapy slider. It was really just like 2 rails with a piece of plastic that went in between them, and it wasn't smooth or nice at all. So it didn't get used very much. So what else did you buy? You bought this, and then you bought something more expensive or less? I'm hoping less.
Less expensive.
Okay.
So I had settled on the Kessler, but then when I got to B&H, it was a order for pickup, and I feel like I'm so lucky that I live in New York that I can order something same day and just run over to B&H and pick it up. Like my accessibility of camera equipment is really incredible here. But
it's outstanding.
So I'm in the store before I pick up the Kessler. I thought I would go take a look at one because I wanted to see if it really was as big as I thought it was and how I might transport this thing. So I went over to the Pro Video section to play around with it, and I started messing with it, and the one they had on display kind of wasn't working that well.
It's because it's been jacked up by 100 people before you probably,
yeah.
But yeah.
That's what I was wondering. But then I started playing with this Benro one that was right above it, and it's only $250, and it's carbon fiber.
Okay.
So it's half the weight of the Kessler. The Kessler weighs like 6 pounds or almost 7 pounds. This weighs almost 4 pounds. And I was sliding with it in the store, and it was just perfect. I was getting amazing movement out of it, and I thought, wow,
super
this
smooth.
is great.
Well, that's
so
good.
I should
so you bought both?
I bought both, brought them home, and I was really happy to see the Benro comes with a case, which the more expensive Kessler doesn't. And it's a beautiful, lightweight slider. I love the look of it, but then I started playing with it, and I just couldn't get that same movement that I was getting in the store.
Like, does it need lubrication or something? Like, is there some sort of care and feeding you're supposed to do?
Yeah, maybe. It feels completely different. These wheels feel like they're moving across the carbon fiber tubes much rougher. I don't know if the other one was lubed up. There probably is some basic care I could do, but I was just kind of immediately disappointed that it wasn't.
Does this one have a crank as well, or is this hand operated?
It doesn't have a crank. It's hand operated.
Okay.
And
that's probably a lot of the price savings there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Benro does make one. They make one with a crank, but it was much more expensive, and I don't think it was in stock. So that was kind of also my last-minute purchase decision. I need the one that's available today.
Available.
Yeah.
Because you leave next week.
Yeah. Leaving very quickly. And the other concern was that I really wanted a slider that someone else could use, and I could trust that they're getting good footage.
So not something you have to practice on for days and days and days.
Exactly. Part of me was thinking with some of these cheaper ones, like, if I tighten them real tight and I kind of put my fingers on the rails with the carriage, I might be able to kind of, very slowly push the carriage with my thumb and kind of control the speed. But it's just so much easier for someone else to turn a dial.
So in the end, you'll be traveling with which?
I'll be taking the Kessler and I'll be returning the Benro.
Goodbye, Benro.
Yeah. Although
you are the weakest link.
Just little things. Like I said, the Kessler doesn't come with a case. I'll probably just check it in the box, the shipping box that it came in. I mean, it came with some padding, so I think that'll be fine. But there's just little basic things that are missing. The Kessler doesn't have... it has feet, but it doesn't have like those articulating legs that a lot of sliders have.
For when you're not on a perfect surface.
Yeah, I can only put this on a table or, realistically, I'm going to put this on tripod legs.
Right.
But one big thing it was missing was, of course it doesn't come with a video head. I have heads I'm going to put on. But it didn't even come with a male 3/8 inch screw.
Of course not.
It comes with...
Of course not.
The opposite of what you'd expect. It comes with, like, a screw hole.
Well, that's not going to be much good, but you can buy the Kessler screw for only $29.99, so...
Yeah, I feel like, am I crazy? Of course it should come with... I don't know why there's a screw hole. I don't understand what you're supposed to do with that.
I guess they figure you're going to put a quick release plate on it?
Yeah, but, like, your quick release assembly or your tripod head, whatever you're going to put on this thing, is going to have its own screw hole. So now you need like a male-to-male sort of adapter or something. I don't know.
But you had one in your box of goodies, I bet.
What I had was a long enough 3/8 screw that I was able to come up through the bottom of the carriage through that screw hole. Luckily, it goes to both sides. And then I was able to mount a tripod head on top. So I made it work. But yeah, it's just like, I hate that I'm spending that much money and getting kind of bare bones features.
Yeah.
But it does the thing I need it to do. It's smooth. And I've used a Kessler crane. I think I've used this exact one on other shoots, and I was happy with it. So I'll be happy with this.
Good. So you're going to Japan. You're doing a shoot. I assume this is a client shoot, not a personal shoot.
Yeah, and that's one reason I don't feel too bad about spending the money, is knowing that the project will be profitable.
Good. You hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not done yet.
Oh, I should tell you the other thing I bought.
Tell me.
Let's see. It's right here. Oh, wait. Where is it? I gotta run around my office and find it. Where did I...
Go look.
I bought something from the used department at B&H today.
Of course you did.
It's a Manfrotto tripod. And
is it like the exact same one we used to have?
Yeah, it looks exactly like the ones we used to have, with those like silver aluminum legs.
Let me get mine. I'll be back. I got it. Looks like this, Griffin?
Yeah, I can't see yours, but it looks like that. The only difference is this one is a photographer one, so it actually has the center column can be removed and go in sideways.
What do you mean sideways?
Like, you could pop out the center column, and the way that this thing, it has like another hole at the top.
So you can shoot portrait.
Exactly, yeah. Or I could almost use this as some sort of interesting C-stand. The reason I got it was $90 used, and it's just a really sturdy set of legs, and I was thinking I might bring this just to support the slider.
Dun 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 dun. Good planning.
Because I'm worried about using like my travel tripod, my carbon fiber Manfrotto tripod. It's a great little tripod, but it's probably not going to be good enough to. It's probably going to torque a little bit if I try to put the slider on it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, should we answer?
Is that all you got to say about sliders?
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, you know what time it is then, Griffin?
Oh, yeah.
It's time for hashtag Ask Griffin. Today's question comes from Philip Nichols. Griffin, what's your favorite phone app?
What's the app I use the most? Probably Twitter.
Did you just eat a little snack?
No, I drank a little bit of water.
Oh, it sounded like you were eating. My apologies. Continue. Favorite phone app?
Twitter.
I hear that will rot your brain.
Yeah, I think it's ruining me. But I'm kind of addicted to the news and jokes about the news.
News and jokes about the news.
I mean, that's pretty much what
I have a new app that I just got today. It's called Halide. Halide. I read some interesting reviews. It's a camera app for the iPhone that purports to make it a lot easier to like quickly do manual stuff on the iPhone and shoot in RAW. So I haven't really played with it yet, but it had great reviews, so it's something I'm checking out.
Very cool. Yeah. Is it a paid
there
app?
You go. It is. I think it was $6.
Yeah.
But I like supporting app developers, so I'm happy to buy an app and try it out. Thank you, Philip Nichols, for your question.
Well, our first filmmaking question today comes from a YouTube comment from Anthony Fradley, who's wondering about batteries for the GH5. And so he's wondering how many batteries we use and if we use any third-party batteries.
Ooh. We need to reference Anthony back to a few episodes ago when my third-party GH5 battery, what camera do I have? G85 battery. It's like none of those are right that I just said. It failed mid podcast. It's kind of a big problem. Yeah. So no, I don't recommend third-party batteries. I know they're more expensive, but buy Panasonic. That's my suggestion.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
As to how many, I think it really depends what you're doing. I get I did have two, but one was the third party. So I am a solo battery guy right now, and that's not a good life to live. So I would say minimum for me is 2. I should really order another Panasonic one, but I have not. And Griffin, I'm assuming you need a lot more than 2.
I think I have 7 or 8 in my bag right now. And part of that is that I've had so many of these cameras over the years, and the GH3 through the GH5 all use the same batteries. So
you're right.
I have at least 5 just from camera bodies. They came with the bodies, and I just keep reusing them. And I've probably bought a couple because I knew I needed extras. So yeah, I think I have 7 in my bag. And on a normal shoot, I'm usually shooting with 2 camera bodies, and I probably need 2 per camera body for like a pretty good day's shoot. If it's a really long day, maybe I need 3 per camera body. If I'm doing a lot of interviews or something, 2 camera interviews maybe. So probably 4 to 6 is the most I'll ever need in a day.
Okay, that makes sense.
It really depends on the kind of shooting. If you're just doing like B-roll shooting all day, I think you get by on 2 batteries total, even between 2 bodies maybe.
Right. But probably always good to have a +1 situation, right? Whatever you think you're going to need, +1.
Yeah.
And
I always feel like I could get through most of my... Well, I bring my regular charger, just the basic one that the camera comes with. I always bring it on my travel assignments. And honestly, most of my like 2-day or 3-day shoots or something like that, I don't ever need to charge batteries. I mean, I could have made it and I would have been fine, but I try to charge batteries in my hotel at the end of a day. But I find that just having one charger, even though sometimes I get a little bit backed up, usually if I just remember to plug in a battery before I go to sleep and then plug in another battery when I wake up in the morning, if I'm in my hotel for a little bit, I can usually handle it just fine.
I remember when I would shoot weddings, I would often find myself needing to charge mid-wedding.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, as soon as you run one battery down, you got to get it on a charger somewhere and work from your second battery and hope that that's not a good way to live. Just have enough batteries for the day. Right.
Yeah, wedding is an environment where you may need to have multiple chargers because you will be burning through battery faster than they can charge. They are kind of slow to charge, so like I think you need like 2 to 3 hours to charge each of these batteries. Maybe it's even longer.
Yeah. We've got a Twitter question from Austin R. Thompson. He's going to be renting the GH5 for a shoot soon, and he's not sure about SD cards. Will his Lexar 633X be good enough? Most people seem to recommend the 100 or 1000X.
So there are a ton of numbers that SD card makers use to describe their cards. Is Lexar the only one that uses these weird numbers?
I think those are their model numbers.
Oh, well, it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like it's multiplication. Like it's 633 times more than something else, or 1,000 times more than something else.
You're right, it is. It leverages UHS-1 technology for transfer speeds up to 633x.
Yeah, but what does that even mean? 633 times what?
It's a class 10 card, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's just dumb labeling, I think.
Bad marketing. Bad marketing. But what's the GH5's requirement for 4K high bitrate? I forget. We've talked about this before.
So the GH5, it depends on what Austin wants to shoot with. If he wants to shoot the maximum bitrate the camera can do, it's 400 if you've updated the firmware. That's 400 megabits per second. And so most of these SD cards are talking about megabytes, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have to take 400 megabits, divide it by 8, because there's 8 bits in a byte, and we know that we need something that can write 50 megabytes per second to be able to keep up with that. And there's 3 main ways that SD cards talk about themselves right now. There's the class, 1 through 10. Then what's the next one? UHS?
UHS, ultra high speed rating. There's 1 and 3, right?
Yeah. And so UHS 1 is the same as class 10, right?
Correct.
Because the class 10 means it can write 10 megabytes per second?
Correct.
And so UHS 1 can do 10 megabytes per second. UHS 3 can do 30 megabytes per second. Neither of those would be good enough to do 400 megabits on the GH5. But they've started also adding these new like V ratings for video.
Video speed class, yeah.
So V30 would be 30 megabytes per second write speed, sustained, that it can handle that without dropping frames. So really, you need a V60 card if you want to handle the 400 megabit recording. Because I don't think they make V50.
That's right. I think you're absolutely right.
But I'm looking at my own SD cards here, and all of them say class 10. I guess they're much better than that, but they all say that just to say we're at least class 10.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are UHS 1. Some of them say UHS 3. Only one of my cards has the V rating, and it's a V30 card.
And that works for 4K?
Yeah, so I don't shoot the 400 megabit recording.
Ever?
Yeah, no, it's not for me. I don't want to write that much data. So I think my maximum bit rate is 150 megabits per second, which divide that by 8. That's only 18.75 megabytes per second. So as long as any of these cameras can write at 20 megabytes per second or more, we're good. And my cards can all do that.
Good. Well, I hope that was clear as mud.
Yeah. I just think it's so stupid that we talk about SD cards this way. It'd be like if you went to buy cars and they were like, well, this car can get up to 120 miles per hour, so we call it a class 12 vehicle. Or sometimes we call it...
Like, why not just use the number?
Right. Or it's a UHS 12. We also call it a V120. Like, just say, what is it? What's its speed? It's 120 miles per hour. Or like the SanDisk cards I have, they do say on the front the megabytes they write. Well, actually, no, it's the read speed. So that's also confusing. They put this like maximum read speed. That's different than how fast it can write video. It's all just a mess.
Big mess. Next question.
This is a YouTube comment from 2 Megapixel, who...
I like that name. I just got it.
2 mega TOO
It's
megapixel.
TOO megapixel, and I think I like that.
2 megapixel, just got a Zoom H4n and 2 Sony ECM 44B XLR lav mics. These are lav mics that I use, wired mics that I've recommended, and loves these products, and is just wondering, when recording, 2 megapixel gets 1 mic on the left channel and 1 mic on the right channel. Is that a problem?
What do you think, Griffin? Is it a problem?
Actually, this is a really common question I get, because it throws people off that they're getting it on the left and right channel. But no, that's exactly how the H4n is supposed to work. You're recording 2 mono signals, and so it's just putting one on the left side and one on the right side.
Yep. So what you have to do then in post is, in Final Cut Pro 10, you can split it up and say, no, these are actually dual monos, and it breaks them apart. Now, I assume, maybe I'm wrong, but in the H4n, you can probably tell it, don't record a stereo file, record multiple mono files. I think that's an option as well. Maybe just makes it a little cleaner in your workflow, but either will work just fine.
Yeah. I know you can do that in the multi-track recording mode. I can't remember if you can do that in the stereo mode. But I'm recording right now on the H5 in stereo mode, and it's recording my microphone to the left channel. So the very first thing I do is, in Final Cut, is disable the empty channel and just make it dual mono. Just tell Final Cut this is a mono signal, not a stereo signal.
There you go.
We got an email from Blake, who is traveling to Mexico soon and wants to take a GH5 and some lenses, shoot some cool travel footage, but he's really afraid of being the target of thieves and wondering if we have any suggestions for keeping gear safe.
Keep it on you at all times, right? I wouldn't set it down. I would want to be using a bag that doesn't look like a big, expensive camera bag, right? Like just a backpack that might have just a more common look, so that, again, you're less of a target.
Yeah.
But Mexico is a little scary right now, I've heard, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, some parts, yeah. One of my favorite backpacks is the Low Pro Photo Hatchback.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it because it has a place for a camera, but it's also a pretty low profile, and it just kind of looks like a regular backpack too. I've always felt pretty comfortable carrying that around. But I would definitely have your stuff insured in case that does happen. You do get things stolen. But I don't know. I've never really been anywhere where I've felt worried about my camera being stolen. And also, maybe this is kind of the benefit of having a small camera like the GH5. Like, it's an expensive camera. It's not the most expensive camera, but also to a lay person, I don't know if you would know the difference between a $2,000 GH5 camera body and a $1,000 lens versus like a $500
super zoom. Yeah.
I mean, maybe you want to steal both if you're a thief, but like, I guess I've just never thought that what I'm carrying around looks like something worth stealing. I don't know.
We got an email from Thad, who's planning a full-length 90-minute documentary. He says the game, it's a documentary about football. The game will be shot multi-camera, 6 or more. For the interviews, he's vacillating between just one camera or 2. He's in a quandary whether to shoot it all in 1080 or all in UHD 4K. He plans to deliver in a 24 frame per second timeline, but will likely shoot in a variety of speeds. Budget and for gear and storage isn't bare bones, but he'd like to keep costs down to have a fighting chance of making a small profit after a year or 2 post-release. So what do you think?
He's wondering if it's worth shooting 4K or if that's a big waste of time.
I say shoot 4K. I don't know what you think, but I think shoot 4K.
Well, yeah, so like one thing he points out is that with 4K, you can punch in, so he's going to have a lot of different cameras, especially during that football game. And he may be able to have the ability to punch in to 200% or something. And that can be cool. But that's never really the reason I shoot 4K. I like shooting 4K because I have done tests with my cameras and found that even if it's a 1080 edit, it can just look clearer. I mean, the camera's bringing in more data to start with. Mm-hmm. So it can look clearer. I do, and I like to be able to export in 4K if I want to. But I wouldn't rely on it only for punching in, because I think if you punch in, especially all the way to 200%, it doesn't look as good as you think it will, because
Right.
I don't know, you're using the center of your sensor and the middle of your lens. You're just not using everything the camera could shoot. So I wouldn't count on relying on that, especially if you're talking about using 2 cameras for the interviews.
And it just seems to me like if you're going out and planning a full documentary that you're wanting to do a wide release of, this day and age, I think, places like Netflix and such they're looking for 4K content now. And if you have the ability to master it in 4K, even if, a 1080 export is kind of what you primarily use now, in a few years, that 4K might be more important. So if you can, I'd edit in 4K and at least give yourself that option down the line.
Yeah. I guess one thing that's throwing him off is the idea that if he's willing to sacrifice the resolution, he might be able to do things like 120 frames per second with his cameras. And, so he could do some super slow motion stuff, which I think would look pretty cool for sports.
Yeah, what would you think, though? Would you shoot an entire game from 6 cameras all in that mode, or would you just maybe have one camera that's looking for slow motion stuff that's going to shoot that way, and you just know maybe that 1080 footage you're going to have to blow up to 4K?
Yeah, you're right. Honestly, your slow motion footage will only look cool on that close-up camera, probably.
Yeah, so I would
need it for your wide shot.
I would shoot one camera in 1080 with 120 frames per second, knowing that you might have to up-res that in the edit, but at least you have all that slow motion.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, if you're not trying to get to Netflix, or if you don't think, I think your end audience probably doesn't care what the resolution is. I think that 1080 still looks pretty great on a movie theater screen. So I think if you are considering doing this in 1080, you certainly can, and you'll be fine. No one's gonna dislike your film because it's not 4K. But if you do want to future-proof
I already don't like it because it's not 4K. That's I only watch 4K now.
Yeah.
I actually finally have my main TV set up for 4K HDR. It's working properly. I was having problems before, but we're full. That's why I wanted you to send me hand cut in 4K 60p so I could test it out.
Yeah. It's funny. For a long time, I've had trouble plugging my cameras into my television, and I've told you that I have an old television.
Your television's from like 1987, so
no, it's not that old. It's an LCD, but it sometimes I'm unable to use it as a monitor, and I finally figured out why. It's because I don't know why this took me so long to figure out, but it is a 720p television. It can also do 1080. I guess it can only do 1080i, but it can't do 1080p.
Do you know how cheap TVs are these days? And it's also super tiny, right? It's like under 40 inches or something.
Yeah, I think it's 37 inches.
I don't know how you live. I have a 65-inch up on my wall, and I'm like, this could be bigger.
But it's funny because I tried to do a test. When I was shooting a few weeks ago a workshop, I wanted to be able to send my camera feed into my Atomos Ninja Inferno recorder to record what was on the screen of the camera, what I was showing the audience, and then also use the output from that recorder into the TV. And it worked in the workshop room with their nice TVs, but I just was trying to test it out at home, and I couldn't even test it because the Atomos was like, this is not a 1080 monitor that you've plugged me into. I can't send out a signal to it.
Oh, that's funny. Seriously, like a good Vizio is not that expensive.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
You just spent like $1,000 on sliders.
Yeah, but that's because I need the slider for a project. I don't really need a 1080 TV for anything.
You need a 4K HDR TV. That's the way the world is going. You're a video professional. Folks, would you please tweet at Griffin and let him know that he needs to just go out and buy a television, please? I'm frustrated.
Well, that's my point to Thad is, even if you shoot your film in 4K, I'm not going to be able to watch it in 4K on my TV.
Or 1080, apparently.
Yeah. I did figure out that... 720
is all you need. Well, at 32 inches, that is all you need.
37 inches.
37, sorry.
I did figure out that on the GH5, when I go into the HDMI output settings, you can switch it from auto or 1080p to 1080i, and that's when I was able to make my TV work as a monitor.
Thank goodness.
Can't work with the Atomos, though.
All right, sir. Have fun in Japan.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Actually, I should say arigato.
Mr. Roboto?
Yeah, that's right.
That's all I got.
The full
That's all I got.
Japanese.
Little sticks for you. We will talk to you next week in Japan, maybe?
Yeah. Hopefully, assuming it all goes according to plan.
There's some
we'll hear
internet
from you there.
questions, right? But yeah, sounds good.
I think they have good internet there.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
I'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm rolling video. You rolling HD?
Full HD, baby. Full HD. Whoa. Check.